The Weir-Barlow composition, "The Music Never Stopped," appeared on the 1975 studio album Blues for Allah and was first performed by the Grateful Dead on August 13th of that year and can be heard on the live album One from the Vault. The Music Never Stopped features great guitar parts by both Bob Weir and Jerry Garcia that complement one another. In this video, we're going to take a look at Bob Weir's parts. So a quick note about the tempo. The backing track that I created for this follows the tempo of the studio version, which is 100 beats per minute. Later on, the song sped up a little, and the song was usually performed at around 110 to 115 beats per minute. On the studio version and early versions, the song kicked off with the drums, but later on, Bob Weir would start playing the guitar part, and then everyone else would follow. Alright, here's the first part, which is a single note line. Here it is slower. Starts with the slide on the 6th string, 12th fret. Then we have open, third open on the 6th string. Then 2nd fret of the D string. 5/4 on the A string. Open 6. And then 3rd fret on the A string. And that implies the chords E to E7, A to C, which each get 2 beats. And then we have this part, which features chords. Alright, so we begin with this E up here. We have 7th fret of the A string, the 9th frets of the D and G strings. We play it and then slide the chord off. Then we have this nifty E7 voicing. So we have open E string, and then the 5th fret of the A string, 6th fret of the D string, 4th fret of the G string, then open high B and E strings. So that gives us root, flat 7th, 3rd, 5th, another 5th, and another root. Alright, so that's our E to E7. And then for the A to C chords, we have 2nd frets of the D and B strings pulled off to those open strings. And we're going to have the 4th fret A string, 2nd fret G string, and then we're going to have the 3rd fret of the A string, open G. So we have Alright, so for the rhythm, we just have this quarter note for the E chord, slides off, and then for the E7, we can either just play quarter notes, or we can have, and you'll also notice that I'll just put in some kind of muted strings in there. It doesn't matter like which notes you play or which mutes you put in there. It's just it's a timekeeping tool. Then for the A to C, So on the and of 1, we pull off from the second frets of the D and B string to open. Then on the E of 2 to E, we're playing the 4th fret of the A string, 2nd fret of the 3rd string or G string. Then we're going to play the C and G, or the root and 5th of the C chord, and that comes on the downbeat of beat 3. So we have... Alright, so that chordal part, that continues through the first verse when Bob begins singing. So we do that 3 times. And then we have this. Alright, so we're playing root and 5th, so an E5 chord, that's the 7th fret of the A string, 9th fret of the D string, and then we're going to alternate that with the 11th fret of the D string, so like a blues. But instead of sounding blues-like, this is the rhythm we have. Then we go back to our single note line. Play that 3 times, then we have 1 bar of our, followed by... Alright, so what we have here is we have our pinky on the 9th fret G string, and then we start with our index finger on the 6th fret of the D string. Then we just move that up, so we have... So 6, then the 7th fret of the D string, 8th fret, 9th fret. Create some nice movement. Okay, and then we come to the chorus, and we have a great sets of chord changes here. We start with this one right here. Alright, so we start with the open A string, then we have the 5th fret of the D string, we have the 2nd fret of the G string, then the 5th fret of the B string. So it's a nice little stretch right there. And that gives us A7 without a third. So we have our root, our flat 7th, our root, and our 5th. And then what we're going to do is we're going to take the ring and pinky fingers down to the 4th frets of those strings, or the D and B string respectively, and leave our index finger on the 2nd fret of the G string. So we get this chord on A diminished 7th. So we have... Then we're going to move those 2 notes down once again to the 3rd frets of the D and B string. So we have our D minor triad with A in the bass. Then if we move those 2 notes down to the 2nd fret, we just have a straight A chord. So open A, then the 2nd frets of the D, G, and B strings. Then he does this nice little pull off from the 3rd fret of the A string to open A string, second fret of the G string, and then an A chord. And he does this twice, and depending on the show, sometimes he just kind of strums and leaves it. Other times he'll add some sparse rhythm to it, and then other times it will just kind of be driving. So that's up to you how you play it, and we do that twice. Alright, then we have this sequence of chords. Alright, so there's a lot there. We start with this A6 chord, so we're just playing the D, G, and B strings. And we're playing the 7th fret of the D string, 6th fret of the G string, 7th fret of the B string. So with the A and the bass, we get an A6 chord. And then we're going to take our pinky off the B string, and we're going to play the 6th fret of the B string. So now we have 7th fret on the D string, 6 frets of the G and B string. And the bass is playing B. We go from A6 to an A augmented chord with a B in the bass, and the bass player is playing the B. And the rhythm is going to be... So we have a dotted 8th note followed by a 16th note, then an 8th note, and then 2 16th scratches. Alright, and then we just play a straight A triad, so that's 7th fret on the D, 6th fret on the G, 5th fret on the B, and the bass is playing C sharp. That's why I have A with C sharp on the bass written. And then we play this chord. So we have the 7th fret on the D, 6th fret on the G, 4th fret on the B string, and 5th fret on the high E string. And that's a B9 with D sharp in the bass. Again, the bass player's playing the D sharp. Alright, and that can be a weird chord to get under your fingers. So just practice that one slowly. Then we have this D minor 7. So we have a bar on the 5th fret, starting on the A string. And then we're going to have the 7th fret on the D string, then the 5th fret on the G string, 6th fret on the B string, and then 5th fret on the high E string. Then we can pull off the 7th fret to the 5th fret on the high E string with our pinky. And then we play this A7 chord. And Bob trills that between that minor third and major third. Alright, then we have... Alright, so this chord, we start with the 10th fret on the D string, then we have the 7th fret on the G string, 10th fret on the B string. Alright, again, this could be subjective, but I see this as a D7 chord without a third. And this is the same shape we had down here for our A7 chord, no third. But now it's up here, and the root's right here on the 7th fret of the G string. We have our flat 7 and our fifth. So by leaving these chords with no thirds, they're ambiguous chords. So it could either be a dominant seventh or it could be a minor seventh chord. And it really gives Jerry some freedom when playing. He'll sometimes play minor lines over it. He'll sometimes play dominant lines over it. And that's what Bob would play when playing with the Grateful Dead. It's a nice sparse chord and it fits in nicely. And then it goes to this G triad. So we have the 9th fret of the D string, 7th fret on the G string, 8th fret on the B string. But then when Bob would play solo, for example, you can check out a solo version of him at TRI Studios, and he'll play this. So he's playing the 5th fret on the A string, and then the 5th frets on the G and B strings. So he's playing a D9 with no third. Again, he's leaving that third out, and then he'll play a G chord. Alright, and then we play through the same chords, but we have lower voicings. Then we go to an A13 sus4, and then a D5 up to an E5. Alright, so our first chord, the A6, we're going to play the 9th fret on the A string, 7th fret on the D string, 6th fret on the G string. And kind of the same rhythm basically. Then we move that 9th fret down to the 8th fret on the 5th string or the A string. Then down to the 7th fret. So we had 9, 7, 6, now 8, 7, 6, 7, 7, 6. And then we're going to play a B9 chord without a root, and that's a 6th fret of the A string, 7th fret on the D string, 6th fret on the G string, and 7th fret on the B string. Normally when I play this B9 voicing, I play it like this, but you'll see Bob fingering it like this, and I believe the reason why is because then when he goes to the next chord, the A13 sus4, you're just taking these two fingers, moving them down a string set, and adding the pinky, so it's easier to get to that way. So this A13 sus4, we make a bar on the 5th frets of all 6 strings, and then we add our middle finger on the 7th fret of the A string, then our ring finger on the 7th fret of the G string, and our pinky on the 7th fret of the B string. And then a D5 sliding up to an E5. Alright, now we're to the second verse, and the verse parts have been transposed to the key of A. So we have this. Alright, so you'll notice that this part is very similar to but we're in the key of A instead of E. So we start with an A down here in 5th position, and the first time is the only time he plays it down here. And then we go to this chord, so just like our E7, we're going up here to the 10th fret. So the 10th fret of the A string with our middle finger, then we have the 11th fret of the D string with our ring finger, and the 9th fret of the G string with our index. Alright, so what this gives us is an A9 chord without a root. So we have our flat 7, we have our major 3rd, we have our 5th, we have the 9th, and we have another 5th. Then we're going to pull off 7th frets of the D and B strings to the 5th frets of the D and B strings. Then we have the 9th fret of the A string, 7th fret of the G string. Then we're going to play F5, G5, then A5. It's the same rhythm basically as the verse in E, but these stabs are a little bit different. So we have D, E, A, and that's a bar of 3/4. And then we're back to 4/4, and we have a full bar on that A chord. So 2, 3, 4, and then back to the verse in E. So it should sound like this. Alright, so back to the verse in E. We do that 3 times, then we have our single note line. It's all the same then. We play that, then we get into our chorus. Into an A. So that's all the same as the first time through. But then we have another bar of 3, and we play E to F sharp. And then we get into the jam section, which is in 6/8. Alright, so the jam is in the key of B mixolydian, and as I mentioned, it's in 6/8 time, and it switches between a B chord and an A chord. And one of the features of Bob's playing is he'll do this B to B sus for the B chord, then the A, this A chord, and he'll add the sharp 11, the D sharp. Then other than that, you know, there's other voicings you can play. For the demo, I tabbed all that out. Another idea is based off this B chord right here, and we have the 9th fret of the A string and the 8th fret of the G string. Then we can add that sus4, so the 9th fret of the G string. Then we move that down to the 7th frets and 6th frets of the A and G strings, but we're going to add the 8th fret, so that's that sharp 11. And And then another idea is this one right here. So we have the 7th fret of the B string, 6th fret of the G string. We're going to hammer that onto the 8th fret of the G string. And basically you can do anything just moving from a B to an A chord. And that is the 6/8 jam. And then for the end jam, we go to the verse chords, or the open intro chords, which is E, E7, A to C. And other than just playing that, there's some more variations you can do that Bob does, and I've tabbed some of them out. One is moving from, we play these two chords, then we play an A7, then we can move these 3 notes up here. So we have the 5th fret of the D string, open G, 5th fret of the B string, and that gives us a G, another G, and an E. So the 5th and 3rd of a C chord. Another one is this E to E7, A, then we have this C chord. So we have the 7th fret of the A string, 5th frets of the D and G strings, and then 8th fret of the B string. And a good example of this one is on 10/29/80 at Radio City Music Hall. You can find that on YouTube. Great version. And when Jerry's doing his tremolo picking, Bob will join in and play. And that's also on that 10/29/80 show, so check that out. All right, and another idea Bob will do that I did not add to the demo is doing that root 5th to root 6th move, and doing that for each of the chords. And then the band kind of joins in that intro, and then you end on an E. All right, I hope you enjoyed that lesson, and I will see you next time.